There we are. We are live, ready to launch. Hello, welcome to Let's Figure It Out, the show where I interview my favorite people and what they do best, the health, mindset, and behaviors of women who want more for themselves and their family and are willing to ask the hard questions to help them figure it out. So I am Dr. Keela Rosner, naturopathic doctor and wellness cheerleader, and I help busy, stressed out women go from hormonal to whole by identifying what's not working in their life and providing a clear action plan to get on the other side of that and start to feel a heck of a lot better. So before I introduce my wonderful guest today, this series is brought to you by my new course where I take you from feeling fine, like meh, to freaking fabulous. So I'm sharing with you my critical strategies to help optimize your health so you can stop feeling fatigued, bloated, and hormonal in under 10 minutes a day. That is a free video series with one lesson a day for the next 10 days from me, highly actionable, useful things. And I'm going to post a link in a wee bit for how to get started with that. So today I'm so excited to be joined by my friend Claire Lautier, transformational life coach. Her mission is to help inspire people to create the life that they want by design rather than default. And she takes her clients through this really cool step-by-step process to help fulfill that greater purpose. So what I absolutely love about Claire, and I've known her for close to 7 years now, I think, is just how freaking practical and grounded she is with any of her advice, anything that she does. And she marries that with such a generosity of spirit and so much warmth. And lovely Claire is just one of those people where, one of those rare humans where you feel like anything is possible when you're talking to her, and she's so inspiring. It is my absolute joy and pleasure to welcome Claire to Let's Figure It Out. Hello.
Hi, it's so great to be here. Thank you so much for having me on your show. And thank you for those really kind, beautiful words that really brought blood to my face and tears to my eyes. That's really, really kind. And actually, I mean, I'll say it right back to you, Keela. You know, you're a friend and a colleague. And one of the things I really love about the way that you work is how everything is so actionable and practical. And, you know, I think this is one of the most important things about what I do certainly is helping people take what can seem like, you know, it's out there in the ether, ideas and things, dreams and things like that, and actually making them real in a very practical, approachable, step-by-step way. That's the way that I love to work because, you know, it's not about philosophy. You know, health and well-being and feeling amazing is not philosophy. It's physics. And it's the most actionable, the most practical stuff in the world. And in fact, I would say that spirituality is the most practical thing in the world. It's not pie in the sky. And that's what I help people realize, that they have the tools, they have everything they need to create a life that they love. And as this relates to the work that you do with health and well-being, before we got on this call, we were talking about, you know, some of the complaints that that Keela hears when she's talking to her patients, and I got really excited because I recognized in that something that I would consider really coachable. For example, Keela, you were saying that somebody will say, you know, I'm so tired of, you know, feeling tired or feeling irritable or feeling, or, you know, I just want to help with my IBS, you know, I just don't want to have IBS anymore, for example, right? And
Yeah.
these are kinds of things that, you know, operate like mantras, you know, that people say, I really just want to lose the weight, you know, I just want to lose 5 pounds. I don't want to feel this way anymore. And actually, from my perspective as a coach, I would jump right on that and say, okay, can you hear what you're saying? Because the truth is, whatever we focus our attention on grows, because we live in an abundant universe. And the fact that we live in an abundant universe means that the universe is constantly amplifying everything, and growing everything. And it grows whatever we pay attention to most. So if you're paying attention to the 5 pounds that you want to lose, it doesn't matter that you don't want that to exist in your life anymore. It's because you're focused on it. The universe amplifies what you are paying attention to. So if you're paying attention to your discontent about how unhappy you are about that extra 5 pounds, just to use an example, that's what actually is going to get amplified in your experience. So it's what the approach that I take in the work that I do is that so much of where it starts is in our mind. And so if instead of, focusing on the 5 pounds that you want to lose, instead focus on what you actually want to create, which is vibrant health and well-being. And that can be a very specific thing, So instead of saying, I just want to get rid of this IBS is driving me crazy. It's limiting me. It's making it impossible for me to live the kind of life I want to live. Well, the more you focus on IBS, the more that perpetuates as a circumstance in your life. Instead of focusing on IBS, what would you love? Well, what does your picture of vibrant health look like, feel like to you? So that's how I would, direct a coaching client who was presenting a health complaint. And then, of course, at the same time, you want to support your body, support the natural intelligence of your body to heal with all of the support that you would offer your patients.
And we're off to the races with a bang, Claire. I love it. So just to back up, for those of you that are joining us live on Facebook or are catching us here on Zoom, we are live. We are more than happy to take questions as we go along. If you are on Facebook, drop us a heart, say hello. We want to get this out here because honestly, as a health professional, as a life coach on Claire's end, this stuff is so transformative. And I particularly handpicked Claire to visit today based on the feedback that I'm getting from my clients, where many of us have been feeling a little bit stuck or stagnant, or on the other side, taking a look around us and going, whoa, this is not working. And I'm not sure what to do to get out of this, this stalemate, and I want to do better. So I picked Claire because she is just such a master at helping us get clarity around what we actually do want and how to move beyond that to get to where we want to go using really super practical stuff. So Claire, I love what you started with there, and I will just back up and say one of the most important questions that I always ask any client that's potentially looking at working with me is, what do you want? And it usually comes out, as you mentioned, as I don't want bathroom misadventures. I don't want to feel like I'm 80. I just don't want to feel so tired. I don't want to be bitchy all the time. Or some variation of, because I work with a lot of hormonal women. And there's a real difference between I don't want to feel bitchy and I want to feel happy. And then we need to go a step deeper and think, well, what does actually looking and feeling and being in that state of joy look like to you? How would you change? How would your life change? And I find for a lot of my clients, it's really difficult to put our finger on specifically that because we're so mired in what we don't want. And I know you alluded to that.
Yes.
So maybe you can take us through your step-by-step framework or a variation of for how the heck we get clarity when we've not maybe been in the habit of thinking about what we do want.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I mean, it's part of the issue is right there, that we're not in the habit of doing this. We were not necessarily taught how to dream as human beings. We were taught how to look at our conditions, look at our circumstances, at our situation to determine what we think we're allowed to have based on that. And nothing could be further from the truth, because we actually create that reality by our thoughts, by our, what I call paradigms, which is our programming, our conditioning, that conditioning and that programming is installed at such a young age that it's subconscious or unconscious, and it's actually running behavior and creating results by means of belief systems that produce thoughts, that produce feelings, that produce actions in the world that attract the circumstances that we find ourselves in. And we are 100% responsible for the reality that we've created. The only difference is, I mean, we can't help but create a reality. We are reality generating beings. We are creators. And so, every single human being is creative in the sense that we are, each and every one of us, creating our reality from moment to moment with our thoughts, with our habits of thought. So we don't get a choice whether to create or to not create. We can't help but create. It's the button is on and there's no pause and there's no off button. So the only question is, are we creating by design, consciously designing our lives the way we would love them to be, or are we creating by default? That means unconsciously, based on old habits, old programming, old conditioning, much of which we didn't even choose because we couldn't choose it. It was
Where does it come from,
implanted in
Claire?
us. Well, it comes from lots of different sources. I mean, it comes from our upbringing, our parents, their parents, their parents' parents, in other words, our lineage. These things are passed down, and we're starting to understand that these things are actually passed down through the genes, you know, through DNA. Also from our educational system that we were raised in, the culture, the religious upbringing, if there was one, or lack of religious upbringing, everything that, you know, we are surrounded by when we're born, when we come into human birth, is a contributor to the programming. We just absorb it because basically until the age of 7, we're in a theta wave state of the brain, which is similar to hypnosis. And it's the reason why children are geniuses on the one hand, because they can, you know, it just absorb everything and function on every modality and learn how to walk, to talk, to exist in the world. But at the same time, there's no filter. So everything just comes in and it's accepted just like nourishment, you know. It's taken in as food and it isn't questioned. So we don't have the capacity when we're that young, you know, to say, actually, that's not a very helpful belief. I won't adopt that. We just adopt it, right? So that's where this programming comes from. And a lot of what we believe, most of everything we believe about ourselves is rooted in this early programming. We don't even question it, and we're most of the time not even aware of it, but we become aware of it gradually through 2 signals that spirit, that the infinite side of our nature is constantly sending us. One is longing, the longing to do or to create or to be, to experience something that we haven't created yet in life, and or just a general feeling like there's got to be something more than this. And the other feeling is discontent, the discontent that we are experiencing in our current circumstances. You know, this feeling of being like somehow limited or constrained or downright unhappy, frustrated, up against the wall, you know, when we've just had it. Feelings of discontent, those are actually really, really important feelings, longing and discontent, to honor, because they are the voice of spirit speaking to us and saying, yeah, there is more for you. You were not actually born to come here and suffer and be on a treadmill and feel like you can never get ahead. That's not why you were given human birth. And I think this current situation with the pandemic has been a huge gift this way. So many of us who were running and basically burnt out have stopped and had some time to actually feel and be still and contemplate, well, why am I here? What is it that I am doing here? Now, not everybody's in that situation. And, you know, we're so thankful to the people who have been able to continue to work, and the people on the front lines, and the people on the spiritual front lines and the physical front lines. But, you know, it's given a lot of people a chance to ask themselves really important questions. And that's where I come in too, is helping people to define. So you were saying, Keela, you know, a lot of people just know they want to feel better. They don't necessarily know what that looks like, right? And so what I help people do is get really, really clear on a vision for what you want to create in your life, because you are the creator, you are the designer. And it's amazing when you start to realize that actually you can design your life, and that you have been the creator of your life up until now. Nobody else, nothing from outside has ever been visited upon you. You have created it, albeit unconsciously, up until now. And so whatever it is that you don't like, that doesn't fill you with a sense of being alive and joyful and excited about every new day, that doesn't have to be there. You can uncreate that, and you can instead create what you want. And in the area of your health, it's absolutely no different, because we know that there is an organizing intelligence to this being that is far more powerful than we can even conceive. I mean, the miraculous healings happen all the time. They don't happen by outside intervention. They happen by something aligning internally, spiritually, that brings coherence and harmony and organization to the body. Because the body is produced by the mind, essentially, by universal mind, the infinite intelligence that we're all connected to because we're all part of it. We are that universal intelligence. We are like a formless, intelligent substance that that can become anything at any moment. This is what they're discovering, you know, with string theory. They're saying that at the most elemental level, they posit that, you know, everything is really dancing strings of light energy that are constantly in superposition. In other words, they can transform at any moment. They can become anything. And this is the formless intelligence, which if you impress your thoughts upon it with consistency and with clarity, must produce the thing that you think about. It will come into being. And it's the same thing with your health. So everything that you do to support your health, when you go see Keela and you've made a decision, okay, I'm going to up level my health. It's a combination of your mind, your decision that you're going to do that, and understanding how to think in a certain way. That is really the most powerful thing, plus the support that you get from Keela, and because it's part of your decision to up level your health. And the body can be supported and nurtured by all the things that you offer, Keela, and at the same time, you know, in combination with your strong intention to change the way you think about your health, to change the way you think about what is possible for you. That is a really powerful combination. I'm super excited, Keela. I just, all of a sudden I had this, I was like, my gosh, we should be working together to help people, you know, like just boom, just take off into the stratosphere with your results. Yeah. I mean, it's
right there.
It totally, it's possible. It's eminently possible.
So much of your saying right there aligns with what we were taught as naturopathic doctors, where, I mean, you go to see your medical doctor, they're going to run a bunch of tests and say like, oh, like you have this disease, here's what we're going to do about it. Or everything's looking normal. I see that you're not feeling great, but you know, it's probably stress. And in some ways, yeah, that's probably what it is, but it can feel a little bit like a pat on the head, you know, don't stress out situation, which is not ultimately helpful unless we're willing to claim that and do something about it.
Yes.
But from a naturopathic perspective, we recognize that there's this force called the vis. And the vis is like our vital force. We all have one. It feels a little bit different for each of us, but we recognize that the body wants to be healthy, that sometimes we just need to get out of our own damn way to allow our body to heal. And it breaks my heart when I hear clients say, you know, I'm just broken, or they awkwardly laugh and be like, oh, I'm just broken, haha. But I mean, I think that kind of thought, that line of thinking, it's common and it's easy to laugh off, but it is so damaging to think that I'm inherently flawed when literally what your body is doing is working to keep you alive at every step of the way with whatever current circumstances and environment we've put ourselves into or we've been put into. You may have something to say about that, but I mean, that's our whole MO, is just to survive. So to think that we're broken is really, really sad.
Well, you know, I mean, that's a really common basic belief that a lot of people share. And it is, you know, it does break your heart for a moment when you think that. I've certainly been there myself, thinking that I was broken and you know, but actually, when you get to the point where you feel like you're broken, you're actually a very powerful place, because anything can happen in that moment. That's a place of real potential. When you think, well, I can't go any further the way that things are going now. I can't stand it anymore. Sometimes we have to get to that point. You know, the universe sends us signals all the time. It's not a question of if, it's a question of what are those signals. And the universe sends us soft signals. And if we don't pay attention to the soft signals, it starts sending us harder signals. And if we don't pay attention to those, boom, something's gonna happen. Why? Because we are unconditionally loved by the power that breathes us, the vis, what you're talking about, the power that breathes us. There's different names for it in different traditions, but there's one power. That's it. And there's only one thing happening, and that's universal intelligence, infinite intelligence. It's encoded into everything. And so the truth is, we live in a benevolent universe that wants our good. Everything is for you out there. Everything is conspiring for your good. It's just a question of aligning with the invisible laws that are already running everything. We're subject to those laws, but we're the only beings, because we have a conscious mind, a prefrontal cortex, I guess, I think that's what they call it, that can choose to go against universal law, right? Every other creature is bound by it instinctually, right? We have a choice to go against it. But when we go against it, we experience dissonance, right? And that dissonance often takes the form of ill health eventually, in one way or another. So getting used to listening to the soft signals is it's something that we have to train ourselves to do now, because we are so, until now anyway, we've been so busy, we've been so driven, we've been so burnt out, we're just running. No, there's more to life than that. So, you know, one of the things that one of the first things that I teach clients who come to me is how to consciously generate state. Now, what that means to me is to be the conscious generator of your energetic state at any given moment. So many people are in a perpetual fight or flight response of the nervous system. And as you know, Keela, I mean, that's a very unhealthy state to be in. Originally, it was designed for us to escape, you know, and save our lives in a short moment, and then, you know, return to a peaceful state. But that's not what happens in modern day humans. You know, that fight or flight mechanism is constantly triggered, and you get adrenal fatigue, and you get like a cascade of symptoms in the body that just can't handle prolonged fight or flight state of the nervous system, right? Because somehow we always feel like we're under threat, right? So even if you don't consciously feel under threat and there's no visible threat, there's this feeling somehow that we're under threat, right? And so adrenaline is, you know, we're just going. The first thing that I teach my clients is how to breathe consciously in such a way. And I mean, you may, I know Keela knows this, but you may know that I have, my other background is in yoga. I'm a teacher of Kundalini yoga and meditation. I train teachers, and the study of yoga was a profound gift in my life over the past 4 years plus. I worked very, very closely with a master in France, and I learned a great deal about universal law from him. And then as a coach, I incorporate these two things together, because this is really a technology. It's a spiritual technology that I use to help people bring themselves into the present moment. So breath, the very, very simple, totally free tool of your own breath, and calibrating your energetic state with your breath, can take your body out of fight or flight nervous system into rest, digest, create. And that is the only place that you can implant a positive, expansive, empowering new belief. You can't do it when your body is stuck in fight or flight. But you don't have to spend thousands of dollars to get yourself out of fight or flight. All you got to do is take 3 minutes, sit down, and learn to breathe slowly in through your nose and out through your mouth like you're blowing through a straw. And if you just go into that breath cycle until you start to calm down, you will notice it's impossible to be anxious and stressed when you're breathing this way. And it takes as little as 3 minutes for you to start to completely shift everything, including your body chemistry and your thoughts, because of course your breath and your thoughts are intimately connected. It is, I repeat, impossible to be stressed out in your mind when you're breathing the way that I just described. So, I mean, it's so simple. It's like ridiculously simple. It's just that we never learned how to live Our educational system has not included that up until now in how we should approach life, you know, but everything in life becomes more harmonious, more beautiful, more easeful, more graceful when we learn to manage our energetic state and what we are transmitting at any given moment to the universe, because everything vibrates. The law of vibration says that everything vibrates, even things that appear solid, they're not solid. They are vibrating so fast that they appear to be solid. Everything vibrates, including you and me. And we, through our nervous system, it's our brain and our spinal cord nervous system transmits that vibration out to the universe. The universe is constantly reading our energetic signature at any given time and will deliver to us results based on that energetic signature. It's as simple as that. So if you want to change what you see on the outside, if you want to change your results, whether it's in your relationships, in your vocational area, what you do with your time and your talent, whether it's about freedom in terms of financial freedom or time freedom, or whether it's about your health, your well-being, if you want to change the results that you're getting in your life, you have to change this. You have to change your mind, and you learn to think in a certain way that's going to align you and bring you to harmony with universal law and ultimately with higher purpose. And that's when it gets really exciting.
So practically speaking, I can see I'm getting some really great comments here. Daniela says, hi. If you're joining us on Facebook, please say hi as well. I can almost see some, apart from breathing through straws, a few people are probably trying, you can almost see some yeah buts forming. And I know, for example, with breathing, it can sound so inane to just be like breathe, but truthfully, it does change how our body releases cortisol. It changes how our blood sugar changes in response to that. It changes how our heart is circulating blood throughout our body. We have a quick hand raise here. Are you open to taking a quick question? Joanne, do you want to type that in the Q&A box at the bottom?
Sure.
Cool. Before Joanne does that, oh, and Lise also has one. Why don't you type your questions in the Q&A box here if you're joining us on Zoom? I'm watching this. How do we do that? When we say, I want to change my state, I have seen many speakers and motivational people that I follow say it's important to maybe talk about visualizing this, or I see your awesome vision board just to your left side. I've seen people talk about doing affirmations. If you are new to this work and you're like, I don't even know what my state is, it's probably not good. Where the heck do you start?
Well, you're right. I mean, the first thing is awareness. This is what I would call noticing what you're noticing, right? So when you notice that you're not feeling great, at some point you're going to notice that, right? Oh, God, I'm feeling really tight or really tense, or my breath is really high. At some point you become conscious of your state. That's when you have the power in that moment to shift it, right? And the first thing, as I was just saying, is the breath, right? Close your eyes, take a few minutes, breathe in slowly through your nose. Why? When you breathe in slowly through your nose, it telegraphs, it signals your nervous system, it sends it a message that you are safe. You are safe. Because you can't be, if you're running and something is chasing you, you don't breathe through your nose. You breathe through your mouth, right? Mm-hmm. So when you start breathing slowly through your nose, your nervous system reads that as, okay, we're safe, we're safe. When you blow out slowly, like you're blowing through a straw, you're actually just helping yourself to lengthen your exhale, right? The slower you breathe, the better it is for you. The better it is for your mind, the better it is for your physiology, because your physiology, as Kilo was just saying, is totally affected by your breath. And you don't have to believe that. You can read all the research that's ever been done on that. There's a ton of it. So we know that that's true. Yeah. So after that, that's when as soon as you've calmed down and you're starting to raise your vibration already by the fact of breathing, that's when you have the chance to implant a powerful new thought. new information for your body about what you would love to create, right? Because you go from fight or flight nervous system to rest, digest, create, with
Reproduce.
emphasis on the, yeah, with that too, with emphasis on the create, right? So this is the moment where you go to, for example, an affirmation, but I love to go to a vision. A vision for the life that I love living. Because the first question that you want to ask yourself when you are dreaming, right? Having a dream, not when you're sleeping, but a waking dream about a life that you would love. The first question you want to ask yourself is, what would I love? What would I love? And you'd be surprised how few people actually give themselves permission to ask that question. What would I love?
Or
Right?
space
But
and
it
time.
is, yes, exactly. More space, more time. Now we have the opportunity, many of us, to dream, right? What would I love if all of the circumstances that normally I would say jump in and say, well, I don't really have the time or the money or if none of that were a factor, if time were not a factor, if my bank balance were not a factor, if my age were not a factor, if my educational background were not a factor, if my gender were not a factor, anything that we would consider somehow a limitation or a restriction on what we would normally do, if none of those are a factor, what would I love? That is a highly calibrated question. In other words, it's a high frequency question. It's a tuned in question that opens up space for possibility. And you may need to ask yourself that question a bunch of times and then allow yourself to receive the answer. Because many people, it's been so long since they dreamed. It's been so long since they allowed themselves to give themselves permission to actually want something without their mind jumping in and without conditions jumping in to say, yeah, but you can't really have that because of this and that, right? No, no, no. In dreaming, we just put that aside. We don't worry about how it's going to happen. We just focus on the outcome, the result. The most successful people, in other words, the people who are living the most fulfilled and fulfilling lives, see the result in their mind first. First. They don't go to conditions to determine what they think they can have. What does the economy say I can have? What does the pandemic say I can have? What does the government say I can have? What does my mother say I can have? You go to what you would love. What would I love to see happen here? If I were living the life of my dreams, of my absolute dreams, 3 years from today, what would that look like? And then you go into 4 domains: your health and well-being, your love and relationships, your time and money freedom, and your vocation. And you ask yourself that question for all 4 domains. What would I love? And you get really clear and specific. I take my clients through a whole process that lasts several weeks where we get really super clear on calibrating a vision statement. You have to have a destination to start stepping towards. And as you start stepping towards it, that's when it gets really interesting, because the universe that can see the highest arc of your potential can see far more than we can see from our currently limited perspective. The universe redirects us towards something that is unexpected. Miraculous things happen, magical things happen, unexpected things happen, but it's all for our good. So yeah, it's about getting clear and specific. And like I said, there's a whole process that I take people through to help them understand how to be definite with the universe. Because when you get definite with the universe gets definite with you. You know, it's like saying you can't cash a check for lots of money. That doesn't mean anything.
Right.
Right? So you have to be specific. What is that? You know, what's that for you? You can't go to an architect and say, build me a really nice house. The architect's going to ask you, well, what do you mean by that? Give me the details, right? It's exactly the
Relative.
same. Yeah.
I think there's a certain amount of even allowing ourselves the space and time to dream, for some of us, a lot of vulnerability and courage to think beyond our current circumstances, because it can be very difficult in some cases to think, this is what I've got, this is my lot in life. So
Yeah.
I just want to acknowledge that it is a challenge and that it is an act of courageous and radical self-love to, one, allow yourself that time to not just go on your phone, not just turn on your TV because you have 10 minutes to yourself, but to actually sit and think, what would I love? Now, on that note, I have a question here from Joanne. She is practicing what you're talking about. That is wonderful. And it's helping physically and mentally. She's wondering if vibrations are considered vibrational auras, if that's the same thing.
Absolutely. I mean, vocabulary is always, we each of us have ideas about what certain words mean. The most important thing to tune into is feeling, frankly, because words are very limited. Words are energy. So what a word means for you is really what the energy of that word feels like to you. So you could call it vibrational auras if you want. An aura is just what's around you, right? The fact is that we are constantly vibrating, and we do have a personal electromagnetic field composed of thoughts and feelings that is interacting with the field of consciousness, the field of universal mind, which is infinite. So yeah, I mean, you could say that, but I try not to get too hung up on having to define things a certain way by words, because words mean different things to different people. When we experience truth with a capital T, though, we all know what we're talking about. We all know what that feels like.
So can you give us an example? You mentioned earlier that we start to get little signals from the universe, like soft touches, that there's more for us. And then if that doesn't work, we sometimes get more slaps upside the head that we need to pay attention. Can you give us an actual practical example, maybe of one of your clients preserving anonymity, or for yourself, like what this process actually looks like? So I know you've had this amazing, varied work experience yourself.
Do you mean the process of getting soft signals that turn into hard signals, or the process of helping clients?
The soft signals to hard signals first,
Right.
I think.
Okay.
Because that may give us a little bit more clarity about what that means.
Sure. Well, let's say, for example, a soft signal as far as your health is concerned would be, for example, sometimes something that happens to me is that I start to get like a little spasm in my eye, like right around here. The twitch, right? It's a stress twitch. Exactly, right? Now, I know when that happens. Now, I pay much more attention to these things now, but that tells me, okay, too much screen time, and that's not easy to avoid, especially nowadays in the work that I do. It's like Zoom is constantly on, but too much screen time, you're too focused on, work, and you're not taking enough time and making enough space, right? This is a signal that I recognize. It's like, it's almost like a Morse code in the twitch that's telling me to chill out, and take some time. Now, if I don't pay attention to that, for example, years ago, I remember I was burning the candle at both ends, because that up until now has been a tendency of mine, not listening to the soft signals. And I was crouching on the floor doing something low, and then I stood up too quickly, and the blood rushed out of my head or to my head. I don't know which one it was, but basically I just passed out. I passed out first. I lost consciousness after I stood up, and I fell down. My head hit the wall.
Oh gosh.
And I, it was a split second. I wasn't out for more than, a second, but it was long enough for me to just lose consciousness, enough to lose my balance, to go crashing back down to the floor and hit my head on the wall on the way. Well, I knocked my block off, like I had to go to the chiropractor. After that, I went to see Sean Orr here in Stratford, and they did a scan, and he looked at my, when they scan you and the red line was out, like practically off the page. He was like, whoa.
You got knocked upside the head because you were imbalanced.
Right? And then I went to see Ward Hazen, and he looked at me, and he looked at my pupils, and he said, you have adrenal fatigue. Right? So it's one thing leads to another, finally I was like, oh, okay. So maybe my way of doing things isn't the smart way. And it takes me bumping my head so that I can go to the chiropractor, so that I can go to another doctor to, be told that, your adrenals are constantly firing and there's no more. Now, that didn't happen all of a sudden. That happened gradually over time. And it was because of my mental habits, my paradigms at that time about how to operate in the world, and the beliefs that I had about myself, about the world, about the way things are, that caused that situation to, an accumulation of stresses that ended up with, me knocking my head on the wall, passing out, and having to realize that, okay, you've pushed things too far. So, I mean, that's a story about me, but it happens in so many different ways. In relationships, when the intimacy starts to kind of fade and you find reasons not to connect with each other anymore, what's going on? There's something going on under the surface there. There are things that are unsaid, there are, and instead of actually, noticing it in the moment that it's happening and reconnecting with the person, you let it go on for too long, and then sometimes it's too late to recover it. So the hard signals, I mean, in what I do, there's two ways to change a paradigm. One is through structure, a structure of support like coaching, that provides the constant space-time repetition and the installation of a new paradigm that is expansive and life-giving in the subconscious. And sometimes it's both, impact, right? A strong emotional impact. And for a lot of people, that is a negative impact, or what we would consider from the point of view of perception as negative, like an accident, a divorce, an illness, some kind of event that is jarring and that shakes you up, right? But these things happen because we don't get ourselves into a structure of support, because we've not been taught to recognize the value of that. Being inside circles of support that are filled with people who are allowing themselves to dream and supporting the infinite side of the nature of one another, right? And believing, because it's true, that anything you can envision is possible to bring into your reality, right? This is how we start to heal all kinds of sometimes very damaging belief systems that manifest as ill health, right? As symptoms of unlived life. And that's the way that I look at any kind of physical symptom that I am experiencing. I ask myself, okay, well, what does this mean? What is, the body is very symbolic in its communication, so what does it mean that I've got this thing in my back? What does it mean that I'm experiencing a weird pain going on in my hip? What does it mean? The body is so eloquent in the way that it communicates with us. So, soft signals on the physical health level turn into hard signals, and it's smart for each and every one of us to allow our subtle faculties to develop so that we become sensitive to the soft signals and we pay attention to them when they arise. Now, it's hard to be sensitive to soft signals because subtle energy is not something that we've been trained to pay attention to. And the way that we numb ourselves with our addictions of all different kinds, by eating too much or too much rich food, by drinking alcohol, too much alcohol, by watching too much television, by spending too much time on the screen, all the different ways in which we numb ourselves make it hard to experience subtle energies that are actually, our body is this exquisitely sensitive organism that was designed to perceive subtle energy, and the process of coaching over time, with meditation and with yoga, the way that I like to approach it holistically in that way, is really about illuminating matter, bringing more and more light, more and more energy, so that, we experience the reality of the truth, which is that we're 99.9% space.
Mm-hmm.
We are not really solid form. And so the more we connect with that side of our nature, the energetic side of our nature, the more subtle we become, and the more we're able to pay attention to receive soft signals and to make small course corrections, small adjustments, instead of going the wrong way for a long time and then boom, we have to get knocked back on course. But listen, whatever it takes, And Keela, I wanted to say, you mentioned something earlier about, how when we're really stressed out, when we're really like freaking out, it's hard to envision something different for yourself. It's hard to dream, and it really does feel that way,
When it seems to be
and
our reality.
yes, exactly. And I want to acknowledge that and say that, yes, absolutely, but the truth is we can't change it all at once. We have to start with one thing, and the one thing to start with is the breath. I mean, there's a course we're going to start next week, that I did a webinar for last week called Standing Firm When Your World is Shaking, which is exactly,
Title of
what we
today's
called
talk.
this. That's right. How do you stand firm when your world is shaking? It's exactly designed for this kind of experience that we're all going through as a collective right now. And also for recovering from trauma. Anything that's happened, whether it was in the way, way long ago, distant past, but it is still running your life in some way or another, or if it's a more recent trauma, a tragedy of some kind, something that just, the toughest terrain that we face as human beings. How do we navigate that stuff when we just want to crawl up, turn out the lights and say, wake me up when this is over, right? The pain can be so intense. The fear can be so intense. Well, there's a way. There is a way to navigate that terrain. When we feel like we can't even dream, like the idea of having a dream is like, are you crazy? That feels so far away from me. I'm just trying to get through day to day, right? Well, there is a way. There is a way to get through day to day. And it's really all about training our perception. So that's why I decided to offer Standing Firm as a coaching course during this time, because I think it's absolutely what we all need, not only to work with trauma that has happened in the past or that's ongoing, but really, with this current situation, because the only way that we can expand and grow through anything is to realize that any adversity that has come our way, no matter what form it takes, if it's a health challenge or if it's, a constellation of events in life that are making it really hard to see beyond, whether you're losing your business or you've lost your business in this current situation, or you're afraid of losing your business, whatever it is, there is a way to face that adversity and to actually use that as a springboard to birth the next greater version of you that is seeking to emerge. And this is going to happen to all of us sooner or later, and usually multiple times in a life, we face something that we could call the dark night. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when. And so this pandemic offers us an amazing opportunity as a collective to make a quantum leap to a higher level of being. So I highly encourage you, if you're feeling like, this is not good, and you're repeating that to yourself in some form over and over in your head, you are that powerful. Yeah, you are the creator. You are the creator. What your word goes. Your word is made manifest in your own life. And, we know when we look at situations that different people can face the same situation and come out of it completely differently. And it has to do with individual attitudes and perspectives. This is where you really have the power. There are many things that are beyond our control, and that's okay. But the one thing that is completely within our control is how we respond to any situation in our life.
Mic drop. So, my goodness, we're getting questions in here and I want to address that. So, to summarize from what I'm hearing from you is one, we need to allow ourselves that time, that space, that permission to not be inundated, to take this weird situation that we're all in, to really think about what we want, what we would love for ourselves if money or time or family issues or geography were not an issue. What is it that we want in terms of our health, our relationships, our vocational well-being, and our fourth pillar is
for time and money freedom.
time, money, freedom. Wonderful. And then we need to channel into our state, especially when we're getting ahead of ourselves. And that can be as simple as deep breathing in through the nose, out through the mouth like a straw. As strange as it looks, it works. And then we need to really be aware of the words that we are choosing. Words mean very different and powerful things to each of us, because we are that powerful that we can start to bring things along our way to us as we set our expectations for what we deserve and what we want. And then you have some really fantastic resources available to help with that. And you and I both work on different sides of the same thing, essentially, which dovetails to my next question from Lise, who says, she's a huge fan of yours, natural remedies to support healing of fibromyalgia, and that doctors say that there's no treatment, and she sends her love. I'm going to jump in on that real quick. There are a number of books to check out on the subject specifically. One is All Is Well by Louise Hay and Mona Lisa Schultz, looking at specific ailments and parts of your body that may not be working and are sending you those subtle signals that things aren't right, and specific affirmations to address that. Dr. Gabor Mate, in his book, When the Body Says No, has a whole chapter on fibromyalgia. And basically he goes through, in his work as a medical doctor, noticing that there's certain commonalities in experience of people that have fibromyalgia versus Parkinson's disease versus multiple sclerosis versus breast cancer. It is fascinating. On that note, Lise, I'm not going to give specific medical advice. Fibromyalgia is something I deal with quite frequently, and I've taken additional training in it. There is much to be done. And as soon as someone says, good luck, I'm sorry, there's no treatment, I'm questioning whether that is their limiting belief.
Yes.
Rather than yours, because sometimes if we've exhausted the tools that we know, that's not the end of the story. That's just the tools that one practitioner or one style of thinking utilizes. That is not the end of the road. And there are a number of functional tests and specific to your physiology treatments that can be done with naturopathic medicine, with energetic healing, with movement therapy, with hydrotherapy, with massage therapy that can be very, very helpful. But I think the most damaging thing that we can do is say, this is it. This is all that there is for me.
I could not agree more, Keela. I mean, that's really, that you're absolutely right, that is the perspective of the medical profession. I mean, from their perspective, there is no cure because they haven't found one, but that doesn't mean that there is no cure. Never let anybody limit your infinite nature. With every question, the answer already exists, or we wouldn't be able to formulate the question. This is one of the things that I teach in Dream Builder, which is the sort of introductory program that people join me on, and that is accessing the mind of the infinite. When Thomas Edison was going through the process of developing the incandescent bulb, he made thousands and thousands of attempts that failed. But finally, thanks to his persistence, he developed the incandescent bulb. Now, if he had just given up, said, well, I guess there's no way to do it, it's impossible, there is no cure, right? Well, we wouldn't have what we have today, right? No, he was different. He went into what he called the land of the solution. He would enter a meditative state, sort of a semi-conscious, semi-waking state, rocking in his rocking chair, holding a stone in his hand over a metal pail.
I do that
he knew that. He knew that if he fell asleep, that he would drop the rock and it would fall into the pail. That would wake him up, so he would know, okay, I went too far. I went into sleep. He wanted to stay in this space of total ultimate creativity. He would ask a question. He would pose the question, how can I find another way to develop this bulb? How can I develop an electrical lighting system that will serve the whole world, right? And he would go into this space. And that is where he got his ideas, right? And so over time, he was able to develop something that no one had ever created. I mean, we had Nikola Tesla on the other end who was developing things in his way, right? We each have access to this infinite intelligence. And for someone to say there is no way, there is no cure, there is no nothing, that it simply isn't true, Lise. It simply is not true. There's always a way. There is an answer to every question. There is a solution to every problem. There is a path to every dream. When we don't see it, it's not that it isn't there. It's that our awareness needs to expand.
Amazing. Couldn't have said it better. Before we wrap this up and transition to the last part of our time today, Claire, I have so enjoyed just soaking up your good energy from my home to yours and from our homes to everybody else's here. Tell us something secretly badass about you that nobody might otherwise not know about you. I mean, apart from like changing people's complete mindsets so that their life transforms, like something also badass.
Well, some people know this, but years ago, I had a spontaneous dream, actually a dream while I was taking a nap one day, that led to the creation of a line of perfumes. And so for about 5 years, I was obsessed with making perfume, natural, 100% natural, with organic ingredients and botanicals. And it was the weirdest thing. It just came, and it downloaded, and then I was like totally obsessed with making perfume. And it was strange because it was like I already knew how to make perfume. I just needed to sort of be reminded. And I consider that, and then, it became something, and I was at the point of, okay, either I can grow this thing and like devote my energy to it if I want to grow it further and make it what it could be, or I just allow it to organically become whatever it's going to become. I felt the energy go out of it as if I'd completed a cycle and learned what I needed to learn. And I've been curious about that 5-year period in my life. Like, what was that about? And I believe that it was about developing a stronger relationship with my intuition, because I would just listen to what the botanicals wanted.
Which is how you and I met. You were in the throes of your perfume building, and I was just so inspired by the work that you were doing when I was newly minted as a practitioner too.
Yeah, that's right. It was around that time. So yeah, that's a thing that just was like a parenthesis in my life, that had to happen for something else to come through, and I still have, some perfume left over. I still have some stock. If you want any, I still have some left over. I don't focus on that anymore. I don't market anymore. I don't, but it was a really beautiful phase of my life where I went through a lot of listening, I think, being receptive and listening and trusting myself to create something beautiful. And it was an expression of how inner beauty blossoms into external beauty, about the relationship between the inside and the outside. And I think it was something that I had to do for myself so that I could move into bigger phases in my own becoming.
The formless stuff of the universe came to you and manifested. I love it. What is something that you are most consistent with when it comes to your health and well-being, Claire? I know it's not just entirely mental. There's some practices that you need to do as well.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, meditation practice. I would say that I've been teaching myself and learning to meditate over many years now. I became aware that I needed to develop a consistent practice when I was about 40. And so I started doing that. And so, yeah, for the last almost 10 years, I've had a consistent meditation practice, and it has evolved and changed and shifted. But you know, I absolutely find that to be the sort of the like the baseline uh, of my grounding. And if I get away from it somehow, you know, get off track, that happens less and less now. But I really feel the need to come back and connect with something greater than this personality every single day. Yeah.
Amazing. And one last question. What are you fascinated with right now? What are you learning that's like secretly got you so excited? Or like not?
I don't think it's any secret. What am I fascinated with? I'm fascinated with our relationship to the divine. I'm just so fascinated by that. Everywhere I look, I see the communication of the infinite intelligence in so many ways, big and small, in so many ways that touch my heart, like birds. I just feel like, you know, birds are messengers, you know, and whenever I see birds now, it reminds me, you know, that I ask myself, you know, what message am I receiving right now? It's kind of, I guess it's become a way that I tune in with the love and the feeling of love and light that's in the universe. So I am fascinated, and I am super excited by how we can, in very practical ways, harness the invisible and get into a flow so that life becomes more and more magical. Life becomes easier. And I think that that is part of the potential of every human being. And so I'm absolutely fascinated with that relationship that we have with the divine, that we already are, and how it's evolving us both individually and collectively. And that's why I'm so excited by this moment, because I see it as a great evolutionary moment that's right on time and a huge opportunity for everybody. And if there's any way that I can help you understand that better, that's why I'm here. I feel like I'm so in my purpose that I'm overjoyed. So yeah, that's what I'm fascinated and excited by.
So on that magical note, Claire, where can our viewers and listeners find more about you?
Well, for more information on the additional support that I'm offering right now, I'm offering lots and lots of free support. For example, on Mondays at 1 o'clock every week, 1 o'clock Eastern time, I do a Facebook Live teaching where I teach on universal law and all of these principles that we're talking about today. You can follow me on Instagram at Claire Lautier LMC. You can follow me on Facebook. My Facebook page is Claire Lautier Life Mastery Consultant. My name is spelled Lautier. Coming up, I'm teaching a 4-week course called Standing Firm When Your World is Shaking. And I'm also starting the next round of Dream Builder, which is a 12-week amazing program that starts on June 2nd. If that's something that you're interested in, follow me on Instagram, on Facebook. You can get in touch with me in those places. You can get in touch with me through my website, which is clairelautier.com. And I'd be more than happy to meet with you, to hear you. I love to listen to people's dreams and to help them take the steps that they can right now towards making those dreams a reality.
So you are open, you are available in the best sense of the word, and you are magical. We could all use some more magic in our life. Claire, it has been such a joy and a pleasure to have you today. Thank you so much for taking time out of our, I was going to say busy. I mean, we're all still busy-ish, but for taking this time for everyone that is watching to say yes to something bigger than yourself, to take that vulnerable step initially. And I encourage you to take in what Claire was saying today. Give yourself permission to pause and to really think about what it is that you do want. We've been weirdly gifted with this time right now. Let's utilize it for our betterment, whatever that looks like for you. So thank you so much for your time today. And if you have additional questions, we will be answering it on my Facebook page, which is Dr. Keila, Keila, Rosner, Roesner, naturopathic doctor. We'll be monitoring the feed afterwards. And I wish you all much happiness, peace, magic. Thank you so much for today.